I'm stuck in a time warp. I was back in November.
So sorry. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed the November meeting. It was a really good one. Thank you so much, Dan. I'm so sorry about that.
No worries.
We began talking a little bit about some experience things, but really, really appreciate it and would love to start by welcoming you and let me introduce you to everybody a little bit, and then you can say a little something would be wonderful. Okay.
Sure, you got it.
So thanks, Dan. Dan is an international keynote speaker and coach who believes that a remarkable customer experience is your best sales and marketing strategy, as evidenced in the book. Dan's 20-year professional career included leadership positions at some really fantastic companies. One of my family's favorites, McDonald's, Discover, and Humana. Dan is the author of 2 books. The one that we read this month, The Experience Maker, and also another one that's referenced in the book, Winning at Social Customer Care. Dan's also the host of 2 shows, The Experience This Podcast, which if you really need to listen to this podcast, it's him and Joey Coleman, and it's an absolutely fantastic, super useful podcast for everything that we do. And also the Experience Maker LinkedIn Live show, which I have not actually, Dan, experienced myself, but I look forward to it. You can learn more about Dan at dangingiss.com, but we are so pleased to have you here, Dan. So welcome, and if you have a little something to say hello, please do.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for that welcome. Apologies again for the delay. I've been excited to talk with you guys. Chris gave a great introduction. I spent 20 years in corporate America, but now my mantra is I like working for the Dan a lot better than I liked working for the man. And so now I run my own business, and truly I have realized, and if this helps anybody, I hope so, but I've truly realized after spending so much time trying to climb the corporate ladder and being concerned about my salary and my bonus and my stock options and whether I was going to get to that next title or not, I really wasn't paying enough attention to, did I love my job? Was I happy? How was my mental health? Did I enjoy getting up every day to go to work? And now that I've been fortunate enough to do that for the last 3 years, it is a game changer. And so it's not that the money's not important. Of course, I still want to make a living. My kids do like to eat, and they like to eat a lot. But doing what you love and what you're passionate about is so important. And I would imagine, given the space you guys are in, that you already know that and do that. And that's amazing. But as you're thinking about experiences, they come out a lot more freely when you've got the passion there and when you're already excited about what you're doing. That's definitely something that I've learned. And then the other thing I wanted to show you guys just for fun. So I'm also a big believer in practicing what I preach. And when I get on stage, my goal is to create an experience for the audience and to create an experience for the client so that everybody leaves not just feeling like they watched a speech, but that they had an experience. And part of how I do that is I insert things into my speech that are maybe a little bit unexpected. There may or may not be a part of my keynote where I break out into song, because people don't expect that in the middle of a conference, right? But the point is I'm doing what I'm teaching others to do. I'm creating an experience. So when the book came out, I knew that I wanted to do an influencer campaign, and I wanted to send influencer boxes out to 100 influencers that I knew. And these are social media influencers, some marketing, some customer service, customer experience people, but all people that have pretty good followings on social. And given that I wrote a book about how to create experiences that people want to share, I couldn't just stick it in a yellow envelope and send it to people, right? That's completely going against what I wanted to do. So we put this beautiful box together. I do have the box. Hold on. Okay, so the box itself looks like the book. Okay, you get this in the mail, like this is really cool, right? And you can't quite tell, but this is the light bulb icon is repeated over and over again. And you open up this box, which mine is sealed, so I'll get to it. But the main thing is my daughter came back from a Girl Scout event where she learned how to make a simple circuit. They just connected a battery to a little wire to a little light bulb. I said, light bulb? Wait a second. And so she and I got together and we figured out how to insert a real live light bulb into the cover of the book.
So
Okay,
crazy.
into 100 copies. And I saw, Lori, I saw your face. I saw your face right there. That's what people, that's exactly the reaction that I wanted. So you open this, you open the box, and it says, "Here's to bright ideas for a remarkable customer experience." The book is on top. And then in each one of these books, we actually did a, you can actually see how it's put together, but we did a limited edition, hand numbered. So everybody got, knew that out of 100 copies, that's all that we made. I got people asking me if they could buy the light up version, and I had to say no, because I only made 100 of them. And then in the rest of the box, I had all these other light up toys. There's a light up yo-yo. There's a necklace that lights up. There's a keychain, and then there's a pen. I don't think you guys are going to be able to see this, but you can kind of see something's going on behind me, right? That's actually my light bulb logo that is being broadcast, almost like the bat signal, on the wall.
So cool.
And people, God, this is like people's favorite parts of it. But what was amazing was I didn't ask anyone to share it. I didn't ask anybody to do anything. I just sat back and watched while they shared on social media. They did unboxing videos. One of my friends who has a huge audience shot a 30-second video. He has a 360-degree camera, and he's taken my picture of the book from all different angles, and he sets it to music, and the words on the screen are "Go buy Dan's book." It was amazing, right? Because that's the kind of publicity you can't buy. And that's exactly the point of the book. So I tell the story because, number one, like I said, it's important to me that I practice what I preach. But number two, I knew, especially given that most of my influencer friends are in customer experience, that this was a big bar. Like, I had to do something cool. And by the way, that light bulb in the book, if you take all of the parts that I had to buy, it was probably about $1.50 to do. It was not expensive at all. The box itself was a little pricey, especially with priority shipping and everything, but well worth it for me. So I'll stop talking for a minute and see if you guys have questions or thoughts or what have you.
Well, just ever since we started talking about this, even before you joined us, one of the catchphrases that we had at Starbucks was "surprise and delight."
Mm-hmm.
And everything that you do should surprise and delight those people that you are working with and for. And that little box, I mean, that is a box of surprise and delight.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's it's definitely true. Starbucks is one of my favorite brands because I think they do it so well. They also do, obviously there's a reason why they put your name on the cup. It's not just so they know your name. It's because it creates a personalized experience. And over time, I'll tell you, when I walk in every morning, I go to Starbucks 5 days a week in my local Starbucks, and I just walk in and they just hand me my drink at this point. Like I don't have to say anything, and that's amazing. Or they say "Good morning, Dan," or like it just feels like home. And that is the kind of experience that you just can't replicate. And so it's, so yes, there's tons of coffee shops out there, but I'm a loyalist to Starbucks because of the experience that they create.
Yeah, it's funny because before I came here, I was at Starbucks for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And just before Thanksgiving, my husband and I decided it was time to buy a new mattress. I said, well, there's a guy down the street. He used to come into he and his wife came into Starbucks all the time. I know him. Let's go talk to Phil. And I called up and he said, "Is this Donna from Starbucks?" I said, "Yes, it is." He says, "Okay, come on over. I'll get free delivery, about $500 worth of free stuff, a discount on the mattresses, a mattress for my son's bedroom at 50% off." And I mean, he's like, "What else can I give you?"
Well, and when someone asks you, when you find out a friend is looking for a mattress, what are you going to tell them?
Oh yeah, absolutely. But I mean, it was like, his response was, "You took care of my wife and I for so long at Starbucks, and you did so much for us. We are just returning the favor."
I love it. And I'll give you guys a little I'm going to give you a secret I have not given another group before. But one of the things that I've thought about, because, you know, the problem with publishing a book is the second it gets published, even before it gets published, people start asking you about your next book. And it's like, oh, come on. Like, like this took me a long time to get this out the door, and I'd like it to last for a while and get me a lot of speeches and all that. But I've actually been thinking about sort of a supplement to this book that actually turns it around and looks at it from the customer perspective, and basically how to be a great customer and how to get what you want as a great customer. And I think especially today, as we're reading these horrible stories about flight attendants getting knocked around and, you know, people just being rude and all this sort of stuff, there's a way to behave as a customer that will get you a great deal or a great experience or what have you. I wanted to thank the Starbucks staff, because they're so nice to me. And so when I told you my daughter's a Girl Scout. So when Girl Scout cookie time came around, I bought, you know, 1 box of every flavor and brought in 10 boxes into the Starbucks just for the staff. I mean, it was like I might as well have handed them gold watches. They were so happy, you know, and all it was a few boxes of cookies. It didn't cost me that much. But I wanted to say thank you. And you know what? I'm pretty sure that's also why they treat me so well. It's a circular thing, right? So I've been very interested and have been starting to collect stories about just how to be a great customer, how to get your own customer experience, right? By just being frankly, a decent human being.
That's a really cool idea, Dan. I really like that to turn it around. And yeah, you'll have to add a little bit more to the WISER acronym. They'll need to be.
Well, and my problem is I don't want to refer to it as the experience taker, because that doesn't sound good.
Yeah,
so I'm still working on it.
That's a really neat idea, but it is good. And I know that, you know, a lot of the folks in libraries who have that front end experience, and like Tara said, you know, librarians are also getting some challenges with some things going on now. It's definitely been tough with the masks and you know, social distancing and things not being available. So but we do get a lot of experiences where we see customers that do make it, you know, a point to help us tell it how to make a good experience for them, and we need to listen to them. Yeah, it's very interesting, but great. Well,
Chris, to that end, real quick,
yeah, sure.
I was talking to another librarian recently. I can't remember from where, and we were talking about this idea that young people have a different way of looking for things and searching for things than older people do. And the idea of a young person walking into a library today in 2021 and frankly understanding something like the Dewey Decimal System is not happening, right?
Right.
And in fact, I was in a library recently looking for a nonfiction book. I'm like, how do I do this again? I mean, I went to the computer, right? Because that's all I knew how to do. But this idea of like when you walk in, almost like the Walmart greeter that's always there. They say hello. Can I point you to anything? Having somebody to say like, can I help you find something? And is like, it's a little thing, but it really, I think, could be super helpful. Or having maybe even a program where specifically it's aimed at teenagers in high school or wherever it's going to be, your young adults, to get them to be library patrons for life, right? It's not just
Right.
about finding that one item. It's about, we want you to come back again and again. And how do we get you comfortable? Because if you're comfortable, you're going to come back. If it's a scary environment or just intimidating in some way, you're not likely to come back. And likewise, I think a lot of people don't. My local library is now renting out camera equipment and headsets and like electronics. I never knew they did that. And so, you know, don't assume that people know everything that you can get at the library is another piece of advice. But I think libraries are a really interesting sort of petri dish for customer experience, because in some way they're a throwback experience, and in other ways they're doing everything they can to be 21st century, right? And now we can get audiobooks and we can do all these things. You know, it isn't just about getting that physical book. And I think it's really important that you communicate that and invite people into it. And the library of the 21st century, you know, it's like, what was it? What was the Oldsmobile, right? It's not your father's Oldsmobile. That's kind of like what I think library marketing should be about right now, is it's not your father's library.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, at our library, we just earlier this month published a new set of patron service standards, and listing for all of our staff, this is how you treat a customer, this is how you treat the, if you know somebody, you greet them by name. If somebody asks you a question about a particular book, you don't just tell them, you walk to the section where that book is and you help them find it, or you find it for them, or and all of these things that should be second nature from a customer service kind of standpoint, but people either have never learned it, or they have forgotten it, or they have gotten lazy, or they've gotten sloppy, or they and they don't look at it from the perspective of what's it like to be the customer. And if you've got two people in the library and one of them is somebody that you can joke around with and be a little bit bawdy with, but the other person is not quite like that, they might take offense at the conversation that you're having with the other patron.
It happens.
It's paying attention to how you are interacting with everybody, whether it's directly or indirectly.
Absolutely. That also goes to the point I make in the book, that there's no such thing as an offline experience. So now take that a step further, and you're having this conversation that's maybe a little off color, and I pull out my phone and I take a video of it, and now it's shared on social media, and now you got a PR disaster on top of it, right? So we definitely have to treat every experience like it is being broadcast live on social media, because it could be. And it's not to instill fear in people, it's actually to just get people to do the right thing in the first place, and to create the kinds of experiences, as I say in the book. I want you to be thinking about not what if somebody should share it, but how do we get people to share it? Like, let's think about how to make it instinctual. And one of my favorite examples that I don't know if it comes out as well in the book as it does when I'm giving a keynote, but when I talked about the taking my son to Fleming's Steakhouse, and we got the dessert with the sparkler on it. What's incredible about that story is that there's 4 people around the table, and nobody asked anybody to pull out their phone, and yet all 4 of us, different age groups, instinctually pulled out our phone, took a picture, and then as I joke, the adults shared it to Facebook because that's what adults do, and the kids shared it to Snapchat because that's what kids do. But just like that, 4 different shares for Fleming's Steakhouse based on one experience. But it's because they know that sparkler is cool. They know the sparkler is going to cause people to take out their camera and take a picture of it. And it almost works. The reverse of it, which doesn't work, is when you see places say, follow us on Instagram and follow us on Twitter and follow us on Facebook and use our hashtag and tag us when you do this and take a picture of this. And people are like, oh, too many instructions. Like, right? You got to make it natural, and make it so that people just instinctually want to share the experience.
Yeah, I mean, and so many great examples of that in the book. The other, you talk about even with Discover Card, when you gave the $5 Starbucks cards, and how people just automatically started sharing them, and then they shared the drinks that they bought with them, and what a great chain that was. One that you talk about too is with Punk Post, and I just love the idea of postcards and things that can put up on refrigerators and things that people can share. You got your Punk Post?
Well, actually, I just got a holiday card from the CEO of Punk Post thanking me for talking about their brand. So there's the card. That part is pre-made, right?
Yeah.
And then this is the handmade part of it, right? It's beautiful. Right. Cool. And I'm not throwing this away. Like, this isn't like your typical, photo of the family, card that everybody gets online that they all look the same. Like, this is something that is, you're going to either hang this up or you're going to keep it. It's like, you almost don't want to throw it away. It's too nice. Right. And that's exactly it. And what they have found is that their sharing isn't always on social. But what they find is that, if somebody puts it up in their cubicle or on their refrigerator or whatever, and they're constantly reminded, that's a different way of sharing. That's kind of offline sharing, but equally effective.
Yeah. Yeah. Has anybody had any experiences in any of the libraries, any folks that are on with something that you didn't maybe expect to be shareable and it ended up, or you didn't push it to be shareable and it got shared? Anybody have anything? I know that, bookmarks and sometimes we make postcards that like for our special collections that have been something that, we have a great collection. I'm sure many libraries, maybe all libraries, have great collections of old photos that people just love to see old photos. So, anybody have any experiences like that?
We had an activity during our summer reading program last year that I'm planning on repeating this coming year. One of the activities that you could earn a badge for was to come into the library and take your picture in front of our photo booth. We had a little photo booth, and it was just take your picture in front of the photo booth, and it was strictly on the honor system. You could check it off. Yes, I took my picture in front of the photo booth. But if they sent a copy of their picture into us to share on social media, then they got a little bit of a bonus. And so I had, all kinds of lovely user-generated content all summer long that I kept posting up on Facebook. And all these people would get so excited. We didn't tag anybody.
Right.
There was no way, but we had people sharing these. Look, I went and got my picture taken at the library. And it was one of the most popular activities we had all summer long. It was crazy.
That's great. Yeah, it's wonderful. Yeah, it's a great kind of experiences. Really, really good. Yeah, and Dan, you talk about also in just talking about like the post, you talk about snail mail, and it is something that that is still a viable. I mean, you find that it's still in your clients and people that you talk to, that snail mail is still a viable thing. Can you share anything else about that?
Sure. So first of all, I grew up in direct mail. That was the first marketing I did. And here's a really random fun fact. My first job out of college was at the Danbury Mint, which is a collectibles company, very big direct marketer. At the time, one of the biggest direct marketers in the country, other than the credit card companies. And it turned out, I found out while I was there that I was actually predestined for that job because my great grandfather was credited with inventing the windowed envelope, which I had no idea until I was working in direct mail. And so clearly that was meant to be. But I find, so first of all, important to note, you probably realize this already, but we don't get as much mail as we used to. I mean, our mailboxes, I remember my parents coming back and the mail is this big every day, right? And sometimes there's nothing in my mailbox. So, whatever is in my mailbox between the end of the driveway and the front door, I've already consumed all of it, right? So but the point is that it has almost 100% open rate. Now there are some tricks. Anything that is handwritten is better. Handwritten letters, handwritten envelopes, an actual stamp on the front is so much better than a machine. It gets opened 99 times more than a machine stamped one. So yes, I get it. Sometimes if you're mailing out a lot, you need the postal discount. I get that. But ultimately, if you want people to read it, hand address it, hand stamp it. That's how you get people to do it. Nobody throws away a card that's addressed to them in actual handwriting, right? Yeah. We can tell junk mail because it looks like junk mail. But I find that it absolutely has a really big effect. I'm actually on a board. The student newspaper at my college was my 4 years. I mean, I loved being on the newspaper as a writer and editor, and I'm now the chair of the board of directors because it's an independent corporation, nonprofit. And I just became the chair, and the first thing I did was ask for a list of our biggest donors, and I am in the process right now of writing them handwritten thank you notes, just saying, hey, how much we appreciate you. I know they got the letter on the stationery that was typed up that said thank you for your donation of XXX, whatever. It's the kind of the form tax letter, but that's different, right? I mean, this isn't a tax letter. This is a heartfelt thank you, like without your support, the newspaper wouldn't be here and what have you. I think that stuff goes a really long way, and it doesn't take a lot. I've heard of people, some people have told me, I've always tried to do this, I just haven't been good at it, but there's people that set goals for themselves of writing a thank you note every day of the week, and making sure that they're thanking somebody, and not just sending an email, but actually a handwritten card. So I'm a big fan of snail mail. I also talk about when I talk to salespeople at organizations, I talk a lot about having been the recipient of a whole bunch of sales pitches when I was in corporate America. And a lot of the ones that got through to me came through snail mail. Because if we don't get a lot of mail at home, we certainly don't get a lot of mail at work. And so I might get, a letter a week at work or a letter a month. And now all of a sudden someone sends me a book in the mail, like, you got my attention. So I do that too. I mean, every prospect I meet with, and whether I think it's going to become something or not, I offer to send him a copy of the book. The perceived value of a signed book is so high, and the actual cost of it is so low that it's worth it every time, right? And sometimes what happens is I get an email back saying, hey, I read your book, I loved it, I gave it to my CEO, the CEO loved it, we'd like to talk about hiring you. All because I just decided to send them, so I buy hundreds of my own book just to send out. And it can get expensive, and even media mail now is way more than it used to be. But I look at it as a marketing expense in my business. So yeah.
No, I think that really is. Yeah. Snail mail is something that, and I think we look at it too as, being en masse, being expensive, but there are a lot of ways that you can do that, in a lot of smaller ways. I know that I've seen librarians who've sent snail mail to certain customers, and our library is looking at doing some small direct mail campaigns, like very small direct mail campaigns.
Do 100 patrons, right? It's $55 if you're just sending a letter. 55 cents times 100, that's it. You don't have to go do everybody. If it works and you accomplish what you want to, if there's a call to action or whatever, then do another 100. It doesn't, you don't have to commit to doing a multi-$1,000 project all at once. Even just a handful of them can often make a difference. So
I think that is something, and I mean, I don't know if other folks can agree, but sometimes it's when we're looking at libraries being open to all, so we want to communicate to all at the same time, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we need to communicate to everybody the same way. So I think that's something
I mentioned this in the book, but think about how many times have you given out your birthday to somebody? And you've shown your ID, or at the airport, at the hotel, if you're young enough to get carded at a bar, or how many times have you filled out a form where your birthday is part of it when you apply for insurance or a bank account, or probably for a library card? I'm guessing you probably asked, but then no one ever does anything with that information. So why did you want my birthday if you're never going to do anything with it? So a great way to do it for all, but not all at once, is start sending people birthday cards. And it's like such a small gesture. You don't have to give them a gift, just recognize their birthday, right? And I think people really appreciate that, because if you take all of the companies you've ever given your birthday to, or all the companies that could know your birthday, because TSA sees the ID and probably doesn't write it down, but could in the hotel and all that. And then you look at how many actually recognize your birthday. It's a tiny percentage. So it's a great way to stand out with people.
And even email, even an email birthday can be something. I mean, if we, for libraries that have a lot of patrons or a lot of customers, even just an email birthday can be a rarity to hear from a government agency or a library that you may not hear. And it is. And people, just like you say, people like hearing their own name. They like being recognized for a birthday. It makes people feel special. So it's very nice.
I don't remember if I mentioned this in the book or not. I often talk about it though, and I'm just looking at people's names on here, and I'm seeing that Kate and Chris, you are definitely going to relate to this, which is that on my library card it probably says Daniel, because that's my legal name. The only person that calls me Daniel is my mother, and only when she's mad at me. So I don't want you to call me Daniel, right? That's not personalization. That's actually showing that you don't know me. You know, I think, Chris, I think at your email, when you sent me an email, it came in as Christian, I think.
Christian,
And so,
yeah, it does.
right. And
yeah.
so, but now I know you want to be called Chris. So these are very small things, but really important. And if you're going to do, even if you're going to do just regular direct mail, or if you send out a newsletter or emails or what have you, take a moment to ask someone, what do you like to be called? You know, do you like to be called Kate, or do you like to be called Catherine? And then take note of that and use it, because when people call me Daniel, I know they don't know me. Just like similarly, when they call me Danny, I know they went to high school with me, because only people who went to high school with me call me Danny, right? So it's just about, when we talk about getting to know your customer, let's just start with their name. It's pretty simple, right? And some people use an initial, some people go by their middle name. Whatever it is, it's not necessarily going to come out on how they registered for their library card, where you probably asked for their legal name.
Yeah, no, it's great. And yeah, we have a couple of comments in there about in the chat. Yeah, now I'm going to say, and I'm probably going to pronounce her name wrong. Tara, is it Tara? Is it Tara? Is it Tara? No.
Tara. Yep, you got
it's Tara.
Yep.
Okay, so it's Tara. Yeah, but I'm sure there are people that say Tara, and yes, and it's very different. And yeah, Brianna saying wishing for a preferred field name in my ILS. The ILS is our system where we keep all the database records of people. And yeah, Brianna, maybe there's a way to modify that even without the name field. That's what I think too. Is I wish it were part of our systems. And I missed one up above from Hannah, a cool example from Hannah. And I think it was back when we were talking just a second ago. So Hannah, your Rotary Club started sending group greeting cards during the lockdown. So yeah, so that was real popular.
Yeah, we were trying to figure out how to keep members engaged, and everyone loves it because everyone can type their little message and add photos, and members really felt special during a time when we didn't have that connection.
And that's a good point. It is, very important now, right, Dan? I mean, it's, now that this disconnection, this can make a big difference.
Oh yeah, I mean, human to human connection has never been more important, because we've all been lacking it for the most part. And so, yeah, anything you can do to that end. And I think, look, the good news in your industry is that you don't have millions of customers, right? You have probably thousands of customers, maybe hundreds, but like, it's not millions. So whatever you're doing, you don't have to worry about incredible scale, right? To give you just a sense, when I worked at McDonald's, we probably got 1 million mentions on social media every day. Okay. That is a little bit hard to personalize to every single person. Okay.
Right.
So the good news is that you've got a reasonable amount of people. The other interesting thing is that you're local. And so that, I think, opens up some possibilities too, that you're not shipping stuff all over the world. You're not, you've got people that are down the street. You got people that go to the same Starbucks as you do, or shop at the same grocery store. I think there's definitely something to being local and to being part of the community, the larger community, not just the sort of the library community. And that, I'm not saying that makes it easy. I'm just saying it helps to sort of frame it a little bit, that I think there's some advantages to that. And the question is, how do you leverage those advantages?
Yeah.
And I have a funny story in that there's a gentleman I've been working with for several months to put on a program. And he's been sending me emails. I've been sending answers back and forth, back and forth. He spelt my name wrong in the presentation. And his name is Thomas. And I said, if you call me Laurie again, I'm going to call you Tom. And he said, what? I said, exactly.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. That's funny.
It's the little things, Lori. I remember being at Discover Card and having a salesperson come in and write on the first cover slide, the title slide, they spelled Discover wrong. Now, what do you think that is conveying to us? Like, high attention to detail or low? So I always joke about that, you know, not When Harry Met Sally, Jerry Maguire, when she says, you had me at hello, it was the opposite of that. You lost me at hello, right?
Yeah, and we have the great example in the book of the ASOS and them making the
Screw up.
mistake and turning it into a great thing, and Drizzly messing up with the personalization, not including it. And it makes a difference. That kind of attention makes a difference.
And I will say, especially early on in the pandemic, yes, we're all getting a little more tired and cranky now, but I think generally consumers understand that mistakes happen and they're willing to forgive mistakes, especially if the bulk of their experience with you has been good.
Yeah.
So, you know, at that same Starbucks, it all comes back to coffee, Donna. No matter what we do, it always is going to come back to Starbucks. But my friend and I, who go again 4 days a week at least, we were there the other day, and you know, we always ordered the dark coffee, and it had no taste. It just didn't. And no, we didn't have COVID, thank God. It wasn't. We double checked on that. That wasn't the problem. But both of us tasted it. We're like, it tastes like warm brown water. So we went and talked to them, and we said, look, you know, we're not complainers. We're here every day, you know, but the coffee's kind of tasteless today. And they did such a great job. He's like, well, let me make a new batch. And then before he poured us new cups, he brought us out little tasters. He's like, does this taste any better? And it just was like, so were we mad that the coffee didn't have any taste? No, we forgave them for a mistake or a bad experience because it's surrounded by great experiences. And I do think people are forgiving of that. Now, you know, if it's the first experience they've ever had with you and they don't have anything to compare it to, that's a different story. If it's a long line of crappy experiences and you keep you know, Lori, if that guy again misspells your name, like, okay, then you're not laughing about it anymore. It's a different story. But I feel like, and I'm a big believer, hopefully you can tell from the book and just from meeting me, I'm an optimist. I talk about positive experiences on purpose. That's part of my brand. I don't knock bad experiences. I let other people do that. And I really try to focus on how to be positive. So I'm a believer sort of in the genuine goodness of people. And I do think that most consumers will forgive a mistake. But how you react to the mistake is really the critical part. There is some research that I have heard, but I haven't I don't know, I can't cite it, so it wasn't included in the book, but there is some research that I've heard around that the customer satisfaction can actually go up if you've made a mistake and recovered well from it versus if you never made a mistake in the first place. And I think the reason for that, if I'm just guessing, is that oftentimes with a company, we don't ever talk to anybody. Think about an e-commerce company, right? I mean, when's the last time you talked to someone at Amazon? You know, probably doesn't happen very often. Well, the only time you're going to talk to someone at Amazon is if you're having a problem. And if they solve your problem in a great way, you're going to feel even better about Amazon than if you never had the problem. Because now you've met Susie, who works for Amazon, and you're like, wow, Susie was so nice and she took care of me. And so I kind of think that's why it is that with so many companies, there's never there's no human interaction until there is. And oftentimes that moment is a customer service moment, which of course means something else went wrong in the first place. So recovery can be really, really big. I reserved a book and you accidentally gave it to somebody else. Okay, that sucks. But how do you recover from that? And how do you make me feel like I'm, you know, still a really important patron and whatever? That's the key.
One of the trends that I really dislike in libraries today is the whole idea of the self-checkout station. Because it puts it to the point where a patron can, you know, they can grab their phone, they can go online, they can put the book on hold, they get an email or a notification that says, okay, your book is ready to be checked out. They can walk in, they can go to the hold shelf, they can take it off the shelf, they can walk up, use the self-checkout, and walk out and never have a single interaction with anybody that works there. That drives me up a wall. I don't like that.
It's a great point. And the only counterpoint to it is, again, especially the younger generations want to self-serve. It's what they like, right? So if you're giving them what they want, they actually do leave happy. But again, so go back to, well, maybe there's somebody that welcomes them when they walk in, and even if hey, can I help you find something? No, I got it. I reserved it and I know how to do it. At least you've still had that moment where there's an interaction. So I hear you and I agree with you. But I also know that there's plenty of times where, like, I still go, my daughter and I go grocery shopping together. We always go to the self-checkout line.
I love it.
She likes like scanning the items, and they always break too. So they're the worst, and they cause me frustration, and yet we just sort of enjoy it. And so, you know, as my friend likes to say, there's 3 sides to every story. So you gotta keep that in mind.
We got a couple minutes left, Dan. Is there anything that you would like to share, like, anything coming up or anything you'd like to share with us?
Well,
real
I have a
quick?
question.
Yeah.
I have a question for you guys.
Sure.
I would like to know, from your perspective, what is the best way for an author to approach a library to try to get his or her book in your library? And I specifically ask because both of my local libraries have been unresponsive to me, which I've been sort of surprised at, because I've gone in, I've said, hey, I'm a local author. I live down the street. Like, I'd love to come and do something for free at at the library. And it might be because of the time we're in. I understand that, but I would love to know what's a good way to get your attention and to get you to consider holding a book that maybe, or sourcing a book that maybe you hadn't thought of before.
Yeah. Anybody have from like maybe a public library, or anybody have any good suggestions for Dan?
I honestly don't know how to respond to that, because before COVID, we hosted, I created and started a whole local author series, and we had a local author every month come in. They could sell their books at the library. We would buy several copies to give away, to the first few people that arrived, and we always, added their book to our collection, and got, had them get up, give a small presentation, do a book signing. It kind of blows my mind that your local library won't do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Tara says,
it seems like a logical thing.
Person. Yeah. Tara says contact their outreach person. Maria, did you have a suggestion? I just saw that you unmuted, so I didn't know if you might have had a suggestion.
Yeah, we pretty much, if you approach us, but we're small. I don't know if the larger libraries have issues that way, but we're a smaller rural library. If an author came to us and the book wasn't like absolutely bizarre, we would love to have someone come in and do a talk, and then, yeah, just like Donna said, you could sell your books, you could do whatever. I'm not sure. Sometimes there's an issue if that system doesn't have the book in their system anywhere.
Yeah.
And they might be wary of the cost, of adding it, but I don't know.
So you donate one is my thought. And the other part of that too is, I think the best approach would be, I thought, do you have a local author series? I mean, you're giving them the idea of what they should be doing anyway.
Yeah.
Without telling them kind of, what do you think about this? So it's like, I never thought of that. And then you try it. Then maybe you do it.
Yes, that's a great idea. And I'd be thrilled to donate one. I didn't know that. I always thought that libraries there was like a certain type of book, or like, I don't know, that they couldn't just take one off the street. But that's an easy way to do it. I mean, I'd be happy to send out copies for that.
So
Go ahead, Kate.
A couple things. It sounds like you want to get your book into their collection. And so that in our library, that's a different person than who handles the events.
Yep.
So you might talk to the collection development person for getting your book in the library. Now, my experience with author events is that they're largely unsuccessful at our library. And I think it's for a variety of reasons. Our community's culture isn't super supportive of the arts. And so we have this small pool of people that, come to author events. And if there's anything else going on art related, they don't come. So again, like someone else said, maybe you can propose some ideas that like National Author Day. Maybe you can have several local authors come and make it a bigger event, or join them for, I'm from Kansas. And so we're going to have a Kansas Day celebration coming up in June. And so we already have an event going on. We can invite authors to that. So the people are going to be here.
Yeah.
Bring the authors in, instead of having one-off author events that you put a ton of time and money into advertising, and 5 people show up, and 3 of those are family members and 2 are library employees. So that's my take on it. Is suggest some other events where authors can come support the library.
Yeah, I like that. Thank
Great
you.
idea.
That's great. Great.
And Dan, your book is on Hoopla. So I don't know if you're aware of that, but that's your ebook is your
Don't even know
audio
what that
book is
means, but
Yep.
sounds good.
So your audiobook is available on a very popular system that libraries
Good.
use.
Awesome.
And
that is, I actually recorded my own audiobook, and part of that was, again, around the experience. I'm not really an audiobook listener, but I've listened to a few, and I very quickly established a preference for wanting to hear the actual author, not somebody posing as the author. That just sounded really weird to me. So I wanted to do it myself. And the fact that I'm a speaker, and podcaster, it kind of came naturally. I just want to say, I know we got a late start, and I know you guys, I don't know if you have a tight finish. I'm happy to stay a few minutes longer. I'm happy if you have to cut off, but I just wanted to note the time and tell you that I'm happy to stick around a little bit.
I appreciate that very much, Dan. I was going to ask, if you just have a minute, that'd be great. Just to finish up, we have a bunch of great things in the chat for what kind of things you go to. Local authors can reserve. Libraries have meeting rooms most libraries have a meeting room that you can reserve, so you can always do your own event. That can get you in there. And I'm sure other folks, there's a lot of other ideas in here about donating, and if a faculty or grad student requests something at an academic library, then they'll get it. So there's a lot of great ideas.
Awesome.
And make sure to share this with you. I hope that helps, Dan. And
it's great. I really appreciate it. I'm gonna have to somehow extract these comments so I can. But it's great. And it just real quickly, the other thing that would be great if you just have a second is, do you have a book that you would recommend that that people in marketing and interested in this would like? Yeah. So one of my favorite recent books, and I do know the author, is called Big Little Breakthroughs by Josh Linkner. How small everyday innovations drive oversized results. I actually think this would be really applicable for you guys. It's about finding innovation in the little things and not having to it's not about necessarily that $1 million idea. It could be the $100 idea or even the $10 idea. So I really enjoyed this book. He's very funny. He's a great storyteller. He's a very, very successful speaker. I mean, he's a guy I look up to in terms of where I'd love to take my speaking career. But I liked this book a lot. So, and it's brand new. I was only a couple months old. We did highlight it on my podcast as well. I did want to tell you one other thing just for fun.
Please.
So my podcast is called Experience This, as Chris said. And we wanted, because it's a show about experience, we wanted it to be a listening experience. And the idea is we don't want it to sound like every other show. So it's not an interview show. Nothing against interview shows. We just decided not to go that way. So we do 3 10-minute segments in every episode, but it's kind of like The Price is Right. We have like 12 segments we can choose from. You know how they don't play every game in every episode and you kind of never know what game you're going to get. That's how we do it. Well, one of our segments is called Book Report. And the idea is that we highlight a book, but instead of interviewing the author, and as an author, I can tell you, I've probably done the same interview on about 60 podcasts at this point. Everybody asks the same questions. You try to give different answers, but whatever. So instead, what we do is we ask the author for a 2-minute pre-recorded audio segment of them talking about their book and who it's for. and then a 90-second audio clip of them reading their favorite passage from their own book. And then Joey and I pick our favorite passage from the book as well. And when you sort of take those 4 clips together, a little bit of discussion, now we have this 10-minute package that is, I think, far more interesting than that same interview with the author. And what we find is we're the only people that have ever asked the author to read their favorite passage.
Wow.
And it's like, it doesn't seem like it's that crazy of a request. And yet we know we're onto something different because all the authors say to us, and they love sort of the final package. So just if that spurs any ideas to you guys, hopefully it's helpful. But also, we love highlighting books. I think we've highlighted, we're probably, because today's episode actually that came out was our 150th episode. I'll bet we've done 60 books or so. Yeah. We even started a second segment that was called What Are You Reading? Because we wanted a segment that was about books that weren't customer experience books, like that maybe we were like, we did one on Ready Player One, right? Has really very little to do with customer experience other than maybe the future imagining of customer experience. So we wanted to work in a segment about how important it is just to read outside of your genre or outside of your area of expertise. And just maybe, I always try, personally, I don't always make it work, but I try to go back and forth between a business book and a fiction book just to let my mind kind of have some fun and then go be serious again and then go have some fun and be serious again. So, but anyway, I just thought I would share that on the podcast.
That's great. And that that would be a great idea for a library to borrow that idea of the recorded author segment and the 90-second. That could be, you could make a library weekly podcast just out of that.
You guys totally could. Podcasts are basically free to start up. I mean, there's a tiny bit of startup cost. You need a good microphone. You do have to pay to house it somewhere on SoundCloud or Libsyn or something. But other than that, it is not expensive. And I think it'd be a great way for you to not only connect with your local community, but to actually cast a wider net, because anyone can listen to the podcast. One of the ones I'm absolutely hooked on right now, which is I think would work so well for libraries, is the Moth. And this idea, the storytelling, these 5-minute stories. True fact, I just started dating somebody new a couple of weeks ago, and in our first date, she's like, I got tickets to a storytelling thing. Do you want to go? I'm like, what's a storytelling thing? And we went and we saw 6 people do essentially Moth-like presentations for 5 minutes, and I was totally hooked. And so now not only am I listening to them every day, I'm actually figuring out I want to create one at some point. I want to go on stage and do one. But that's a great type of a thing. So maybe you take that. I know some libraries do local TEDx events or that sort of a thing, but I think especially in the virtual world, if you're thinking podcasting, think about short stories and maybe members of the community sharing their 5-minute stories could be really, really cool. I'm always shocked at how interesting people's lives are when you ask the right questions. And just to give you a quick example there, when I was in corporate America, I always told people, I reviewed thousands of resumes, and I always told people, when you create your resume, make sure that at the bottom, you have something about yourself that has nothing to do with work, because the hiring manager wants to get to know you. Now, when I came out of college, the 2 things that I had on my resume were that I was a certified bartender and that I loved The Simpsons. And I am telling you that every single interview that I went on started with either, do you know how to make this drink, or did you see this episode? It was uncanny, right? So somebody brought up to me this idea that the About Dan page, so dangingiss.com/about, it's the page about me. They said to me, it looks nice and whatever, but you're just talking about work stuff. There's nothing in there about you. And I'm like, dang it, I didn't take my own advice. And so I started this bulleted list of just random facts about Dan. And I add to it every once in a while. And to be honest, at this point, it's probably too long. I think there's like 2 dozen of them. But it is amazing to me when I meet with someone for the first time, a prospect, it happened today. They bring up one of those facts and they say, tell me about the time you delivered a pizza to Michael Jordan. Or I noticed that you have a vintage Galaga machine in your basement. How the hell they know that? Oh, wait, it's because that's one of my facts. And so the point is that everybody's got something interesting about them. And I didn't think I was that interesting, to be perfectly honest. But as I started looking for these random factoids that would get people's attention, I was like, I actually got a few interesting things. So
Yeah,
try to collect that in your community.
that's great.
Dan,
No,
I
it's
gotta
wonderful,
say,
yeah.
I was at the laundromat with a total stranger, lots of strangers. And we just started talking about music and a couple different things. And this one woman, she said, I'm sorry, I'm listening in, but you guys should run a podcast because we're talking about cars and music and whatever. And it just was like, it flowed so easily and it was great. And it just, I never thought about it from that standpoint, but
It is, podcasting is so fun. And Joey and I, we really feel like we've gotten better at it as we've gone along. I like to quote Frozen and say that we finish each other's sandwiches at this point. Like, we just have a really great rapport, and it's so fun. And I love not having to be on camera. I love just being able to talk about something I'm passionate about. And ultimately, it doesn't matter what you're passionate about, just find something and you're going to have a great conversation and create really good content around it. So, yeah,
Yeah, thanks, Dan.
that's
No,
awesome. You
that's
should do it,
great.
Lori.
Yeah. So before you go, if you would do us one favor and you'll choose our next book next month is Indistractable by Nir Eyal, and probably mispronounced his last name, but actually I don't think I did because I've listened
No,
to his
you
book.
did. You're good.
So if you would pick a number from 1 to 9, we will give somebody a copy of next month's book.
Oh, okay. I'm going to pick 4.
Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. Angie Rhines. Angie, you get a copy of Indistractable. So I get that for you.
Fantastic.
Congratulations. That's our next book. Well, Dan, you're so generous with your time. Thank you so much. Sorry we got a late start, but thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. This was wonderful. And I'll share any other feedback and notes that we have. And hopefully we can get your book into your library and many libraries.
Well, I appreciate you guys too. I'm going to put my website and email address. If you ever need anything or have any questions, please reach out. As you know now, my RN Wiser is responsive, so I practice what I preach. If you reach out to me, I will definitely respond to you. So thank you guys. Happy holidays. Happy New Year. Stay safe. Keep doing what you're doing because you guys provide a fantastic and much needed service to your community. So thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks. And happy birthday, Dan, coming up in 3 days. 4 days. Happy birthday. Yep. Merry Christmas. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Thank you again, Dan. And rest of the group, we'll see you next month. And Dan, we'll see you online. Okay. Thanks so much. Hope to see you soon.
Thank you.
Everybody.